Welcome to the LA Insider, the podcast that takes you inside the neighborhoods of Los Angeles through the voices of the people shaping them. I'm your host, Jason Anderson, a real estate agent in LA and your guide to the stories behind the city. Each week I sit down with local entrepreneurs, community leaders, and business owners to uncover what makes their corner of LA special, from hidden gems to big ideas and neighborhood-changing insights. We'll also explore the path to success that brought each of my guests to where they are today, their challenges, wins, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Whether you're exploring where to live, grow a business, or just want to understand the real LA, this show is for you. Let's dive in. So welcome to the podcast. Today I'm happy to have Nicholas McGrue with us. Nicholas is the founder and principal attorney at Polymath Legal PC. It's a boutique firm specializing in real estate syndication, business transactions, and entertainment law. So in LA, entertainment's huge here, so I'm sure that's very successful. He's got over 15 years of experience, and in that time, he's raised hundreds of millions in assets. He's also a tenured law professional, or professor, I should say, and he's well known for his expertise in the SEC compliance and intellectual property protection. So welcome, Nicholas.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So I wanted to just start out at the beginning. So you're 15 years into a law career, So tell us, where did you start? Where did you go to law school? And tell us your journey to where you are now.
Yeah. So I went to Pepperdine University School of Law. That's actually what brought me down to Los Angeles area. I'm originally from Seattle, Washington, and did my undergraduate degree up there. And when I started undergrad, this was in like 2002, so I'm dating myself, but I got an email that said, "Hey, would you like to join this listserv?" And email was still relatively new. You weren't getting the hundreds of spam that you get now. And so I was like, sure, let me join this listserv. And it basically was saying that, we're looking for people that are interested in the legal field. And at the time I wasn't, but I was like, it doesn't help to get information and to see stuff. And so I started getting more of their emails, went to a couple of events. I was like, oh, law seems like it might be interesting. Who knows? And then I took a class. It was called, I think, Management 300. But basically, it was an introduction to business law class. And I loved it. Everything just clicked. It made sense. Like, I'm a very logical person and like rules, and law has a lot of that. So it just really made sense and just felt natural. And so after taking that class, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to law school. And so I took a couple other classes that were law related and started learning about the law school and lawyer journey. And a few months after taking that class, I was, starting to study for the LSAT and all that good stuff. And then when it came time to actually pick a law school, my number one choice was the University of Washington, the hometown school. I applied to probably like 12 schools, and I got into every one of them except for one, and you can guess which one that wasn't. So I didn't get into UW, so I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to leave home, and looked at going to East Coast, like DC and those areas. But all my family still is based in Washington State. So I was like, East Coast, that's a little bit far. Let me stay on the West Coast. If it's LA or the Bay, that's, an hour, 2 hour flight. So easy. And so I started looking at schools in Southern California and went to visit Pepperdine and just really liked how I felt there. And I'm very happy with that decision ultimately.
It's that clean air from the ocean, right?
Yeah, that fresh Malibu air.
Yeah. So did you say, what did you get your bachelor's in?
I was an ethnic studies major in college.
Studies, okay. And then which major of law do you to pick a major? I mean, within law, like a specialty?
Yeah, so the cool thing about law school is you actually just get a law degree. You don't
Right.
have specialties, but you can focus your electives. And so my school at the time had a Center for Business Entrepreneurship in the Law. And so I took most of my classes out of there, and so was focused primarily on business and real estate law. So that's what I focused on in law school, and that's what I work in now. So it worked out well.
Yeah. And how about that bar exam? I heard California is supposed to be the toughest.
Man, what I tell the students that are, thinking about law school, I'm just like, listen, sometimes in life there's going to be things that you have to do that stink, but you just got to go through that in order to get where you want to go. And that the bar exam, prime example of that. I'm actually licensed in California and Washington. When I graduated, they do you really bad. I graduated and it's fun. You're celebrating on the weekend and everything. And then the next Monday, you're back in class studying for the bar exam for like 2.5 months. So not a fun time at all because you don't know how hard you got to study. So I was like, I've just got to leave it all on the table. And so studied my behind off for that 2.5 months, taking the California bar. And then what's even worse is that, you take it at the end of July and
Mhm.
they don't actually give you your results until like November or so. And so you're
Yeah.
waiting, hoping for that long. And so for me, at the time, I wasn't certain I was going to stay in LA. And so I was like, I'm going to take the California bar first, and then you can only take it twice a year, July or February. So I said,
Mhm.
I'll take the California bar first, and then in February, I'll take the Washington bar in case I go back there. So I would have had to start studying for the Washington bar in December, right around when I got my results. And I
Mhm.
had such a bad taste from that summer. I was like, I need a little bit more time. And so I ended up not taking the Washington bar for like probably 2 years later. And with that one, I was already licensed, already practiced as attorney in California. So it wasn't as dire as the California one.
Yeah.
So being honest, I didn't study it nowhere near as hard as I did for the California one and still ended up passing. So yeah, I will say that there is credence to that, that they say California, I think it's California, New York, and Florida are supposed to be the hardest ones. I can say California was dramatically harder than Washington's, that's for sure.
Wow. So you study for California, you pass it, and then for Washington, you just have to just pass the one exam there and you're good.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, if you go to a ABA approved law school, you can essentially sit for any bar exam in any state. And
Oh, wow.
so, and the interesting thing is, California is one of the few states that doesn't have a whole lot of reciprocity. Because with my Washington bar, I can kind of wave into Idaho and Oregon and probably a few other states.
Uh-huh.
California is starting to get more now, but because California allows you can sit for the bar by taking the ABA, going to an ABA approved law school. You can sit for it. They also have California approved law schools. And then we've heard about what Kim Kardashian's doing. You can sit for it basically by being an apprentice as well. And
Yeah.
so at least before, because of that, a lot of states were like, well, if you took it in California, we don't know what if you went to law school or what, so we're not going to let you just wave into ours. But it's starting to open up a little bit more now.
I know somebody who's taken the bar a couple times and didn't pass. Do you have a tip for that person on like how to do it?
I think a lot of it really is a mental game. It really is a mental game. You can just psych yourself out. And I have some friends. I thankfully passed both of them on the first time. I have one friend that a good friend didn't pass his first time, and for him, he said, "Yeah, the first time I took it, I wasn't as focused, and wasn't really putting my head down. But then the second time, he's put his head down a little bit more and passed it." But yeah, I could definitely see. I have another colleague. She actually was a psychologist that worked with clients of ours at one point. And so she had her medical degree, MD psychologist or psychiatrist, whatever it is,
Hmm.
but then went back to law school and had taken the bar exam probably 6 times or so. Super intelligent lady, super hardworking. And even with her, I was like, "You got this. You went to medical school. I think that as a lawyer, I'm like, that's way harder than law school." So I was like, "You can do this." So it really is. I think a lot of it's mental. Obviously, you do have to understand the basics and everything. But if you've
Hmm.
gone through that, done the studying, at that point, I think it's really just mentally and so mental. So figuring out how to calm yourself, how to kind of knock all those distractions or that negative self talk that comes into your head. That's what I'd say is probably the bigger thing. Because yeah, it really is. It's just not a pleasant experience, but it's one of those things you gotta just push through to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, it's probably psychological more than anything, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah.
So you got your law degree, and then how do you pick a law firm, or what's the next step?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2009, which was one of the worst times to become a lawyer. The economy was crashing. They were laying off the lawyers that had just got hired 2 or 3 years before me. And so when I got out, I was competing not only with my class, but also lawyers that were 2 and 3 years older than me. So normally how the law school career journey works is that your first year you work for free, you just learn a lot, get experience. Second year you work somewhere and you're getting paid, and the hope is that summer is like a interview and they're going to offer you a job afterward. And so I did that. I worked in house at a company, and the company was like, "Yeah, you're great. We love what you're doing. Well, we can make a spot for you. Just reach out to us in the wintertime and we'll talk logistics and get it going." But yeah, they're like, "Stay in touch. We got a spot for you." That was in August of 2008. And then, like a month later, everything went crazy. And so I reached back out to them in January or February, and they're like, yeah, we had to do layoffs. A lot of people are on furloughs. Our office is closing. So sorry, we can't help you. And so I'm back, graduated, took the bar exam, passed the bar, and I'm applying for jobs because I didn't have a job at the time. And I'm applying for jobs that I didn't really like it, but I was just like, I need some work, need to start getting experience, need to get some income coming in. So I'm applying for all these jobs, but since I'm not working at the time, I told myself, I was like, you've got to work at least 8 hours a day for yourself. So you're either applying for jobs or my law school hadn't shut off our access to Westlaw yet, which is a very expensive database. And so
Hmm.
I was reading all the guidebooks, looking at all the samples, just trying to train myself more. And then also, I knew that my goal originally was to work for a firm 2 or 3 years and then start my own firm. And so I was like, let me start business planning and working on the website and doing stuff for that. Since I'm sitting at home doing nothing, I need to make sure I'm progressing. So was doing that, and thankfully had a friend that was doing tax consulting, and she's like, "Listen, we need a little bit extra help. We can train you, and it's not a full-time thing. It's like project based." And so it was very blessed to work with that friend because I'd work maybe like a week or two a month, but that was enough to at least sustain. I was like 25 at the time, so my lifestyle costs were much, much lower. So it was enough to cover the bills and make sure I can survive and all that sort of stuff. And then, so I did that for about a year and a half. And again, all this time planning on the law firm. At that point, I had had a few friends and family. They were like, hey, I'm working on this, working on that. And so I do small things here and there for them. And then I worked for this company that I was doing the part-time stuff for. Ended up being a month-long gig in New York. They had a project out there. So I was in New York for a month and it's great. They paid, I was again 25, never had made that much money in a month before, paid me very well. They put me up at a suite at the W in Midtown. So, like, very cool. I'm feeling all like fancy and all this. And then I saw something and I saw how much they were charging for the work. And it was me, one other attorney, and then we had like an admin that was helping us with stuff. And I
Yeah.
saw how much they made, and I said, "Man, I am on the wrong side of this." Again, I got paid well, but these guys that were not even in the room got far more than I did.
Yeah.
And so that's what motivated me to say, you know what, I need to just launch this firm. And so got back from New York, launched my website, sent out emails to friends saying, hey, I'm open for business. And I looked out, I had a really good friend that was a property manager. She was a property manager for a family run real estate company. They had lots of commercial property in California, Nevada, and Colorado. And so she was their asset manager. And I had launched my website on Monday. Wednesday, she calls me and says, hey, we just fired our attorney. You do real estate law, right? And I'm like, yes, I do. She's like, great. I wanted you to come in, meet with my boss, and maybe we can hire you. And so, sure enough, ended up getting my first client in my first week, which is very unheard of.
Awesome.
And that's a very busy client as well. So that client helped me, kept the lights going, and helped me slowly grow out the law firm.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, it happened so quickly, but it's all because you were prepared.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the firm that you're in today?
Yep, yep. Yeah, so that started Polymath Legal in 2010 and still going strong.
Wow. And tell me about it. How many employees do you have and what kind of clients you're working with?
Yeah, I've had as many, I think, as seven at one point. Now we've got three full-time and one part-time. Thankfully, technology and just better systems allows us to be a bit more efficient. So yeah, three full-time, one part-time attorney or part-time employee. Yeah, our clients range. Our focus is real estate investors and real estate professionals. As we mentioned earlier at the top, I do a lot of syndication and capital raising. I'm not doing the capital raising, but helping them lawfully raise that capital.
Mhm.
So real estate investors are our main client, but then just general business owners. We have lots of business owners in various industries. I'm pretty entrepreneurial myself, so I kind of know what that journey is. I know a lot of the legal pitfalls and loopholes as well. So lots of small and medium businesses. And then, as you mentioned, being in LA, I had clients starting out doing just business work with them and let them know I'm like, yeah, I haven't done entertainment. That's not really what I do, but I do know contracts well. And so with some of those clients, they're like, yeah, we'd rather work with you. And if you can't do it, just let us know. But
Mhm.
we trust you and would rather have you. And so that's kind of how I got my foot into entertainment. And with that, we've done kind of the gamut. We've had clients that have created movies, written movies, produced movies, starred in movies. We have clients that are Grammy Award winners, New York Times bestselling authors. So it's not an area that I like focus on, but it's been cool to kind of grow that little area kind of organically as well.
Okay, so I'm hearing that your firm basically has two arms, one real estate and the second one entertainment,
Essentially, yeah, I'd say
right?
real estate, and then the second one is business slash entertainment.
Business slash, okay. And for people who aren't familiar, could you tell us a little bit more? You mentioned syndication. I think a lot of people won't know what that is.
Oh yeah, yeah. So syndication is basically pulling money together to buy a project, an asset, etc. So with real estate, works very well. A lot of my clients may come to me and they're starting out and they're like, yeah, I've got a couple of duplexes or a couple single families here or that, and I want to scale. I want to get more than like 10 units. Get the like 10 units, mom and pop can handle that fairly well. Even up to 50, a mom and pop can handle pretty well. Once you get above that, you start getting into the institutional level. At 100 you are. And so I have clients that are like, yeah, I've had some success. I have some rentals myself, or maybe I've done some fix and flips. Now I'm wanting to do more long-term hold properties and bigger assets. And I don't have all the money, and the bank's not going to lend me all the money. So I need to raise that money. And so they come to us and we figure out kind of what their goals are, what laws surround what they're doing, and then make sure that they're complying with those as well.
Hmm. Could you give us like just a little vision of like one of your clients, like from the start to finish, they came to you with a problem and then what was the result?
Yeah, so this is actually another good thing. So our firm's motto is relationships first. And when I
Huh?
was then I've had that since for like 15 years. Because when I was thinking about, what should our model be, what has made me successful, when I was looking back through my life, I was like, relationships. There's always been relationships, and then this is not in like an exploitive way, because I also try to give into relationships as well. But every time, at every turn where there was like a hurdle or something, I was like, there's a relationship that helped me conquer that or solve that or fix that. And so this is another example of those relationships. So that friend that I talked to you about that was the property manager that
Huh?
got me my first client,
Yeah.
she ended up growing, actually ended up moving away from LA and started doing more in real estate on her own. And so at one point, her and her husband had probably like 30 single family homes. And so she's calling me and she's like, yeah, this management is just it's killing me. It's so much. It's 30 properties. They're all in the same general area, but not the same street or anything. So
Hmm?
she was like, just the maintenance and management and running this is just too much. And so at the time, I was living in like a 25 or 30 unit apartment building. So I jokingly was like, hey, why don't you buy my apartment building and then I'll manage it and then you're good to go and you consolidate. And then I told her, I was like, but seriously, like think about consolidating. You've got 30 single families. You can sell those off and probably get close to a 30 unit building itself, and it's going to be much easier to manage.
Yeah.
And so she's like, oh, I'll think about that. And she comes back and she's like, I like your idea of scaling, but I want to go bigger. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, yeah, I found this apartment. It's like 120 units. But I need to raise some capital. Have you heard of this thing called syndication? And I was like, yeah, so for me, actually, the first syndication I did was for
Huh?
a winery. So I'd done a syndication for a winery. There's a business company that we were working with.
Yeah.
And so I'd done syndication for a winery. I'd actually done one for somebody that was raising capital to make a movie as well, but hadn't done any with real estate, even though real estate was my focus. And so when she asked that, I was like, yeah, what do you know about syndication? And so that was the first deal that I did with her, and the first real estate syndication that I did. And that was probably 2014.
Hmm.
And then that same client has probably acquired 6 or 7 more assets. She's bought or sold, I think, over $1 billion worth of assets. And I knew her when she was just a little property manager. So it's a cool journey. But yeah,
Yeah.
so she came saying, hey, I want to consolidate. And so we were able to set her up to where she could sell those off and raise capital to buy a bigger asset. And she
Hmm.
liked it so much, she kept on doing it.
Okay, so in this example, she would have sold those 30 homes, took all that equity as a bundle, maybe used that for the down payment on this huge 120 unit building.
So it wasn't enough. So she sold out because she went way bigger. So she sold
Okay.
all that. She put some of her capital in, and the bank lended maybe like 70 or so percent of that. And so she's like, I still have a delta that I need to fill. And that's where
Yeah.
the syndication comes in play.
Okay. And then who are the people that invest in this syndication side of it?
Could be you, me, just everyday people. So there
Okay.
are rules, income requirements, depending on which rule exemptions you're following. So basically, if you're having somebody that's passively investing in your property, your project, your deal, whatever it is, there's
Uh-huh.
a good chance that you're selling a security. And so if you're selling a security, you either have to register that, like going public, or you have to have an exemption. And so we help clients find those exemptions because registration is expensive, it's very time consuming, and a lot of times with real estate, you have a timeline, so you don't even have the time to go through that. And so
Yeah.
we help clients figure out which exemptions could work for them, which exemption is going to be the best for them, and then ultimately making them comply with that. So there are some exemptions that have income limits, minimum incomes that people must have, but
Mhm.
there also are some that don't have any. And so really the investors are people in your network, people that may just like real estate and like the product you're doing. It can vary.
Mm. Do sometimes people use a 401k as a tool to invest with?
Yeah, self-directed IRAs. Yeah, which is
Okay.
similar a retirement account. Yeah, self-directed IRAs is very common. And yeah, because people will have that money sitting there and you're like, well, I'm making like 5% in the market, 7% maybe.
Uh-huh.
Or obviously real estate has risks.
Yeah.
But in its heyday 3 years ago, you could be getting 18, 22% returns. So you have the opportunity to get much larger returns. So yeah, there's a good amount of clients that reach out to investors and say, hey, if you don't have the money yourself, what about your retirement accounts? Those are things you could invest in this as well.
Okay. And then I would imagine you structure agreements between all the parties to protect everybody and make sure there's no disputes.
Yeah, or I can't. This is what I tell clients: I can't
Huh?
stop disputes from happening. I can't stop anybody from suing you.
Yeah.
And if any lawyer ever says that we guarantee you won't get sued, run. There's no way you can do that. But what we can do is set you up in a position that if you were to get sued, you're going to be in a good position to prevail. And also, we set you up to where we have documentation in place to where hopefully we can avoid the lawsuit. So yeah, there's a big, long, scary document called the Private Placement Memorandum or PPM, and that
Mhm.
outlines all the risks. It says that they might lose their capital and all sorts of warning things like that. And I've had situations where an investor was upset and the client comes to me and is like, they're upset. What should I do? And I'm like, what are they upset about? And they'll say something. And I'm like, oh, we cover that. Just point them to this point in the PPM right here, and then show them their initial and their signature on the next page. They agreed to this already. And so a lot of times, if you just remind them, like, hey, we told you about this and you knew this going forward, and then they're like, oh, okay. And then they go away after that.
Yeah, nowadays people have short-term memory lapse, I think.
Yeah.
Going back to that example of the person that sold the 30 properties, what kind of pitfalls did you have to help them avoid in raising the capital?
The biggest one is with raising capital, especially when it's your first one. I didn't necessarily help them with this, but
Huh?
for people
Or
listening,
in general?
no, yeah, it's a lot. In managing investors is a lot more work than people think. This is one thing that I always tell clients, especially when they're new. I say, hey, make sure you have a team in place. If it's even if it's not team members, it could be employees or what have you, but make sure you have people that are in place because there's a lot of work. And one of the things that's difficult is that if you're an operator, a lot of times you're not only dealing with the actual acquisition, so working with the lenders and the buyer and the attorneys on both sides, because these are commercial transactions typically. So you're working with the actual transaction, which takes time. But then in addition to that, you're also working with your investors and getting them answering their questions, getting them to sign the right paperwork, working with me, the securities attorney, et cetera. Yeah, the one thing I'd say a lot of people are often surprised with is how much that investor management, how much time that actually takes.
So it sounds like you invest a lot of time into these projects and representing your clients.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about your like how we can find you online and how people who want to work with you can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the law firm is called Polymath Legal, and so
Okay.
the website is www.polymathlegal.com. So polymathlegal.com. That's the website. On there, you'll see our phone number. You can message us directly. You can also just schedule a free 15-minute consultation as well. You can also find me on social media on Instagram and TikTok. It's at Nick the Lawyer, Nick with no K. So it's NIC the Lawyer.
And what about Nick's Law Lessons? What can you tell
Yeah.
us about that?
Yeah, so Nick's Law Lessons, this is something I do because as you mentioned, I am a professor. I love teaching. I really do like the law as well, so I like
Huh?
talking about it.
You seem like you'd be the favorite teacher.
I try to make it engaging. Yeah, so Nick's Law Lessons, basically, funny enough, that same friend
Uh-huh.
suggested the friend from the property manager to the syndication. She was like, "You have all this knowledge, like, and it's a one." She's like, "It's a way you can get clients, but also like help people out," which I'm always down to do. So Nick's Law Lessons, typically we do it once a month. It's usually the first Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific. And what I'll do, it's usually an hour long. It's free for you to join the live call. And I'll pick a topic. It might be a topic that people have given to me. It might be a topic that I see clients messing up a whole lot.
Mhm.
Or it might be a topic that's kind of new and people need to know about. And so I'll usually spend about 30 minutes or so with kind of a planned lecture, so to speak, where I'm giving information. And then we have a 30-minute Q&A. And the Q&A is sometimes about the topic we were talking about, or if there's a question that falls under my expertise, then I'll answer that there. So it's a way to build a little community, share my legal knowledge, and also being candid, I do end up getting some clients from that. But at the end of the day, if you show up for free and you learn stuff and never work with my firm, I'm still happy as long as you learn something.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It's great that you're giving back. I'm sure a lot of people could benefit from watching that. Now, how do you log on to it?
If you go to nickslawlessons.com, you can
Huh?
add, you can join our newsletter, or if you just go to the website as well, or message me in any way, just say,
Hmm?
hey, I want to go to Nick's Law Lessons. We'll make sure the team gets you the information you need.
Okay, so is it kind of like a Facebook Live situation, like where you're on live and people just log in to interact?
It's a Zoom webinar
Zoom
essentially.
webinar. Okay.
But
Oh,
yeah,
great, great.
you can still interact. There's a chat box. So as I'm talking, I see questions pop up. I'll answer those. So yeah, it's interactive.
Okay, that sounds amazing. I think a lot of people watching would love to take part in that.
We'd love for them to join.
And I always like to ask my guest about what neighborhood they live in. Now, you're not an LA native or a California native. I'm sure you could have chosen anywhere in LA that you wanted to live. Tell us about where you chose and how long you've been there and how you chose the neighborhood you're in.
Yeah. I am, as you said, I am not an LA native, but I've lived a lot of places in LA. I've lived in the Valley, I've lived in Santa Monica, I lived in Hollywood, I lived in Culver City,
Oh
and
boy.
now I'm in the great city of Inglewood. I've been in Inglewood for probably 8 or 9 years now and love it. It's a great city. And obviously, since I've gotten here, it's changed a whole lot, but it's an amazing city.
Yeah, so how many stadiums are there now? There's like SoFi
Yeah,
and
there's the Forum,
or
SoFi, and I don't know, Intuit, that's what it's called.
into it. That's the big one,
Clippers
I
Arena.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. So I do hear people say that downtown area can be a little congested when there's like a big show.
Yeah, it's not so much even downtown Inglewood. It's one interesting thing is now we have
Yeah.
these zones. Before it was just like Inglewood and you had like the city center. Now we have the city center, which is like downtown, and then we have the Inglewood Entertainment Zone.
Oh, okay, that's the
So that's
one.
where the Forum and SoFi and Intuit are all are. And yeah, it can get crazy. I remember probably about a year ago, shortly after Intuit opened, I went to a Usher concert, and my house is maybe 1.2 miles away. So I usually
Huh.
would walk and stuff, but I had like a Uber voucher. So I was like,
Yeah,
oh, it's free. I'll just go ahead and Uber it. And it took like 25, 30 minutes
just for
to
them to show
Uber
up.
there. Yeah, I was like, I should have gotten out and just walked. So.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you want to
and
stay off Manchester and stay off
huh,
of Prairie when there's events
very
going on because it can get crazy.
okay, excellent. So, what are your top three favorite things about living in Inglewood?
Inglewood, I love just the people, the community. It's a great city, great people, very working class, very caring neighborhood. That's what attracted me to it to begin with. Because again,
Mhm.
when I got here before the stadiums were going up, but just love the people, just because especially people that are not from LA say, "Oh, LA, everybody's fake, everybody's this." If you're either from here or you've been here long enough to where you get to know the real LA, you're like, "Yeah, there's real people here." So I love that Inglewood is very much a real people neighborhood. When I'm going for my walks in the evening, we smile and we say hi. So I like that aspect of it a lot.
Yeah.
Another thing that's great is just the location. I think is great. We're close to the 10, close to the 405, close to LAX, not too far from the 110, so kind of easy to get around LA County for the most part as well. And then yeah, it is cool seeing all the new developments going on. They are trying to do things to help make sure that people are not getting displaced as much as I love the development, I also like the culture that we have here. So
Sure.
making sure that we can maintain that. But yeah, seeing all the developments and seeing just it's kind of weird. I realize that I'm older now because they're doing a project and they're like replacing the water pipes. And I'm like, yes, do that non-sexy work that you really
Yeah,
need, you know, the infrastructure.
yeah,
And so they're doing like stuff that's not super fancy and nice, but I'm like, yes, that's the stuff that really matters at the end of the day. So
really does.
see all these developments coming in, it is finally starting to trickle down, and we're starting to see some of it in our community, which is nice as well.
Oh yeah, because I'm sure the city's getting lots of tax dollars from all those
Yeah.
concert tickets. Now
Yeah.
they can start investing in fixing things even nicer.
Yep.
And one thing about Inglewood that you'd like to change?
More pedestrian and bike friendly.
Okay.
There's like more bike lanes. We have some places that are somewhat walkable, but just more. Yeah, give us opportunity to get out of our cars a bit more.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. LA in general is very car centric, but slowly it's starting to change to be more bike friendly.
Yeah.
Sure. Where's the best place nearby to do it? Any outdoor activities? Any outdoor spaces?
We actually have quite a bit of parks.
Okay.
I believe I always get the name wrong, but I think it's the Warren Lane Park. It's huge. It's like multiple city blocks. There's multiple baseball fields. There's a football field with the fancy turf.
Yeah.
There's basketball courts. There's I think they call it like some sort of biking course where it's like rubberized, but there's like hills and all that sort of stuff. Lots of open space, lots of various playgrounds. Like it's a huge park, which I love.
Yeah.
And then there are also just lots of little parks all around. That when I have friends that are not familiar with Inglewood and we're like walking around or whatever, they're like, man, there's a good amount of green spaces. So lots of opportunities. But yeah, that park is basically on Florence and La Cienega,
Uh-huh.
or yeah, Florence La Cienega. Yeah. No, Florence and Centinela. Sorry, Florence and Centinela. A
Uh-huh.
big, huge park there. I don't know if I said there's a swimming pool there as well.
Oh,
So
nice.
lots of opportunity for recreation at that park, which is nice. And there's a little like a outdoor amphitheater. Like it's great.
Okay, so Inglewood gets the stamp of approval from Nicholas.
Yes.
All right, well, that wraps up our call today. All of your contact info will be shared at the bottom of the podcast screen so we can all get in touch with you and watch your Zoom calls every week. So thank you, Nicholas, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you for tuning in to the LA Insider. I hope today's conversation gave you a deeper look into the people and neighborhoods that make Los Angeles so dynamic. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves LA just as much as you do. I'm Jason, and I'll be back next week with another inspiring guest and more stories from the heart of the city. Until then, stay curious, stay connected, and keep exploring LA.